Hi guys, today we are learning about how to simplify a rational function. Okay, the first question is what is a rational number or expression? Give some example. So when it comes to a rational number, a number that can be written as a fraction is called a rational number. For example, if I do 2 over 3, that is a rational number. If I do 1 over 5, these are rational numbers. Now, but when it comes to expression is, for example, if I write 2x minus 1 over x plus 3, that is a rational expression. In rational expression, we have algebraic expressions in the denominator and the numerator. Another example can be just 1 over x plus 3. Another example can be x over x plus 5. So these are all the examples of rational expression. Question number 2 is just simplify the following. So if you have to simplify a rational number, right, how you simplify that? So we just look at the denominator and the numerator and figure out if there's a common factor. So here we can see that both numbers can be divided by 3. So if we divide by 3, this becomes 7 over 8. Similarly, this can be divided by 5, so it will be 10 over 9. Now here, when you have two variables, and when you divide these two variables, they both are x, so we just subtract the exponent. So the answer will be x. 3 minus 2 is 1, or you can simply write x. Similarly, when we divide these two, it will be x to the power of 4 and y to the power of 2. Here, first we need to simplify that, because we can write ab with the exponent 5 as a5 b5 divided by a3 b5, right? And now when you simplify that, a5 divided by a3 is a2, and b5, it just cancels out, so the answer is a2. Now what's a rational expression? A rational expression is the quotient of two polynomials, f of x divided by g of x, where f of x and g of x are polynomials and g of x is not equal to 0. The denominator of a polynomial of a rational expression cannot be 0. Similarly, when you're writing a rational number, the denominator should not be 0, because when its denominator is 0, it's become undefined. With Devian, if the denominator is 0, then the rational expression is undefined. Okay. Next is when you simplify rational expression, you need to state any restriction on the variable, if any. This can be found by, so for example, let's do this example first. So here is an example where we have to write the restriction. As we talk about, whenever we are talking about the rational expression, the denominator should not be 0. So just look at the denominator here, x minus 2. So we have to figure out what makes it 0. So if we take x as 2, it will be 0, right? So the restriction for this rational expression will be x is not equal to 2, because if x equals to 2, then the denominator will be 0. So that is what is meant by the restriction. Okay, so when these are some of the steps for simplifying rational expression. The first thing we do is factor fully the numerator and the denominator, if possible. Then we state variable restrictions. So restrictions are just as I give it to example here. Determine the values for each factor that makes the denominator equal to 0. State the variable in numerical order. Okay. Cancel out the common factor to reduce the rational expression and then simplify. Okay, let's look at the example here. So here, if you just look at this question, in this question we can't factor it because it's one term in the numerator and one term in the denominator. So what we will do here we have number, just look at the numbers here, 30 and minus 6. So 30 divided by minus 6 is minus 5, x4 divided by x7 is x minus 3, and y3 divided by y1 is y2. And you know that we cannot have a negative exponent in our final answer, so we will write as minus 5 y2 divided by x3. So for the next question, in the numerator we have a polynomial, so here we have to factor it. So let's just look at that. There's a common factor, which is 2x. So if we take 2x as a common factor, I'm left with 5x3 minus 4x plus 2 divided by 2x squared. Okay, so here before I simplify that, I have to state the restrictions. So what are the restrictions here? Here the restriction, I have the denominator, the variable in the denominator is just x, so x cannot be 0. So the only restriction we have is x cannot be 0. Okay, and now when I simplify that, I'll get 2 cancels out with 2, and this x cancel out with the exponent here, so I'm left with 5x cubed minus 4x plus 2 divided by x. So that's my answer. Before I do the next one, just look at the previous one here. The restrictions will be here. We have two variables, x and y. So the restrictions will be x is not equal to 0 and y is not equal to 0. Okay, now look at the next one. So in this question, again, we have a polynomial in the denominator and the numerator. So if you look at the numerator, we can take a common factor, which is 2ab. So if I take a 2ab as a common factor, I'm left with 2a minus b. And for the denominator, I can write it as 2a minus b times 2a minus b. And before I cancel anything, I have to write the restriction. So here denominator is 2a minus b, so it means 2a minus b, you know that it should not be 0. Or you can write it as 2a should not be equal to b. So that is the restriction. And now when I simplify that, that cancels out, and I'm left with 2ab divided by 2a minus b. And that is my answer. Okay, now here is again the same thing. So once you take it's a polynomial, and now you have to factor it. So here we can take the common factor, which is again 2x. So I'm left with x plus 5. In the denominator, the common factor is minus 3. I'm left with x plus 5. And now I have to write the restriction. What makes the denominator 0 is negative 5. So I will write x is not equal to negative 5. And then I simplify that. So x plus 5 is gone, and I'm left with 2x over minus 3. Or I can write it as minus 2 over 3x as my answer. Now look at the next question. Here again, we have to factor in the denominator. I have a trinomial, so I will do a plus 4, and then here I have to factor a polynomial. How you will factor a trinomial? So the product is negative 4 and the sum is 3, so you have to figure out two numbers whose product is negative 4 and the sum is 3. So the number are positive 4 and negative 1. So my factors are a plus 4 and a minus 1. And now before I cancel, I will write the restrictions. So here I have two factors in the denominator. So my restrictions will be a is not equal to negative 4 and a is not equal to 1. Or I can simply write a is not equal to negative 4 and 1. Okay, now I cancel out the common factor, and I'm left with 1 over a minus 1, which is my answer. Okay, now in the next question we have to do the same thing. So we have to factor that. So here that's a complex trinomial. So the product is negative 2 and the sum is negative 1. So the numbers will be 2 and negative 2 and positive 1. and then we divide both numbers with 2, right? So that is minus 1. So my factors are x minus y, and the second will be 2x plus 1. Similarly, when you factor the denominator, it's a simple trinomial, it will be x minus y times x minus y. Okay, before I cancel out, I will write the restriction. I have the same factor in the denominator, two factors which are same. So my restriction is simply x is not equal to y, right? Okay, once I cancel that, I'm left with 2x plus 1 divided by y minus 3. Oh, x minus y, I mean. X minus y. So that's my answer. Okay, question number 2 is a rectangle is 5 times longer as it is wide. Determine the ratio of its area to the perimeter. Okay, so if first we draw the rectangle, right? So here it's saying the rectangle is 5 times as long. So say the width is x and the length will be then 5x. Okay, first before we find the ratio, area and perimeter. So area is, length times width, right? So the length is 5x times x. So that is simply 5x squared. Then we have the perimeter is that you add up all sides, right? So it is 2 times length plus width. And that becomes 6x times 2 is 12x. And now you have to find the ratio. The ratio of its area to the perimeter. So area divided by perimeter. Area is 5x squared and the perimeter is 12x, right? And now you simplify. We cannot divide 5 and 12. And then x squared divided by x is simply x. So my answer is 5 over 12x. Okay, and here, because we have a variable in the denominator, so the restriction will be x is not equal to 0. Okay, next question is, if two rational functions have the same restriction, are they equivalent? Okay, now if I just take two functions, for example, I'm taking f of x equal, I'm taking x over x plus 1, and I'm also taking as okay, I can take x squared minus 1. So this is one of the function, and I'm writing another function g of x, which I can take as this is two rational functions. So here it's saying have the same restrictions, are they equivalent? So here the restriction is, okay, I'm taking another one like x plus 2 over x plus 1, and I take as, here I can write it as x plus 3 maybe, right? So here the restrictions are, for example, if I do, the restriction for this one is x is not equal to -1 and x is not equal to -1, right? But if I simplify f of x, that will be, for example, if I factor it out, it will be x minus 1 and x plus 1, and then divided by x plus 1, and that cancels out, and I'm left with x minus 1. But if you look at the g of x, right? So here when I can't cancel anything. So my function will simply, you can multiply them. It's x squared plus 5x plus 6 divided by x plus 1, right? So the both functions have same restriction, but they are not equivalent, right? Okay, now the next question is, consider a rational expression Identify, if possible, a rational expression with integer coefficients that simplify to this for each set of restrictions. So here you are given the restrictions, and this is your answer, right? You have to figure out a rational expression, and then when you simplify it, you get this as your answer. But the restrictions are, for the first one, for example, the restrictions are x should not be equal to 2 and 3. Okay, so I have to write two polynomials like f of x divided by g of x, right? And then my answer is 3x minus 1 over x minus 2, right? Okay, now look at the restrictions here. The restrictions are x is not equal to 3, x is not equal to 2. So it means in the denominator, I must have x minus 3 and x minus 2, right? Okay, now I have to figure out that what gives me this expression as my answer. So here I can write, okay, here x minus 3 is not in my answer, so I can write it x minus 3 and 3x minus 1. So this is because when I will simplify, x minus 3 will cancel out, and I will be left with 3x minus 1 divided by x minus 2, which is my answer. But the restrictions are x minus 3 and x minus 2. And when you write your final answer, it's better if you just simplify it. So when you simplify it, when you multiply the two factors in the numerator, you will get 3x squared minus 9 minus 10x and plus 3. And in the denominator, when you multiply these two, you will get x squared minus 5x plus 6. So that is my answer, right? So this is the expression. When I simplify that, I get this, right? But the restriction are x is not equal to 3 and x is not equal to 2. Same is the case for b. Here we have three restrictions. So when I write my function f of x divided by g of x, in the denominator I must have x minus 2 and x minus 1. And you know again my answer is 3x minus 1 over x minus 2, right? So it means I cannot have x minus 1. So it means x should cancel out, right? And x minus 1 will cancel out, and I'm left with 3x minus 1. So that is my expression. But when I'm writing it, how will I write it? I will simplify it. So I'll multiply these two, right? And I multiply these two, and I multiply with x. So here when I multiply, because when I will cancel out, x minus 1 will cancel out with x minus 1, x will cancel out with x minus 1, and I'm left with 3x minus 1 over x minus 2. But to write my final answer, I will have to simplify that. So when I multiply these, all the terms in the numerator, I will get 3x cubed minus 4x squared and plus x divided by, I multiply all the terms in the denominator, so that will be x cubed minus, that was 1, so minus 3x and plus 2x, x cubed minus 3x squared plus 2x. So that is my final answer. Okay, for this one is the same thing. So I have to come up with functions f of x divided by g of x, and my restrictions are, so here for 3 over 2, my restriction, how will I write the factor in the denominator or a polynomial in the denominator? It will be 2x minus 3. Here it will be x minus 2, right? And my answer is 3x minus 1 over x minus 2. So it means here I can have 3x minus 1 times 2x minus 3. Because when I will simplify that, this and this will cancel out, and I'm left with this as my answer. Again, when I simplify that, I will multiply these two. So the answer will be 6x squared minus 9 minus 2 is minus 11x plus 3 divided by 2x squared minus 7x and plus 6. So that is my final answer, right? Okay, now we have the last question. State and domain of each function. So here, just look at the denominator. It's x, so it means x should not be 0. So what I can write as my domain, okay, so domain, it means domain can be any number, but not 0, right? So what I write is x belongs to R. X belongs to R mean x can be any number, right? Such that x is not equal to 0. So here basically I'm just writing the restriction, and x can be any number other than these numbers. So here I have x should not be 0 and x cannot be 2, right? So the domain will be x belongs to R, means x can be any number such that x is not equal to 0 and 2. For the last one, okay, now look at that. Here, can you tell me what makes that 0? X is a x squared. So if I take x as any number, negative or positive, I can't get 0. For example, if I take x as -1, then x squared plus 1 will be -1 squared plus 1. So my answer will be 1 plus 1, that is 2. So for any real number, the denominator cannot be 0. So here there is no restriction on x. So the domain will be simply x belongs to R. It means x can be any number. And that's comes to the end of the lesson.